Boom! Covers halftime live. Indianapolis Colts, New England Patriots on a Saturday night. I am Adam Chernoff. No Davis Sanchez tonight, who's living the high life at the Raptors game at half capacity. Nevertheless, he's always doing important things in the city of Toronto with very important people, and I'm here sitting at the desk watching football. We've got a game that so far, so good for any pregame positions that I have, but we're going to have second half lines coming up in just a second. A few things that I'm intrigued by. Lions currently off the board in a game that I think we're really seeing what both of these teams actually are. And that's going to be maybe a little bit difficult for people to hear when it comes to thinking about the Patriots and what they ultimately thought they were, especially on the defensive side of the football. Here's the total we're seeing at 23.5, and that was fluctuating back and forth between 23.5 and 21.5 before the game went to halftime. Let's see what the spread ultimately comes out at. Pat's likely going to be somewhere around the field goal favorite in this spot. The game closed pick'em, a 17-point lead for the Colts is going to produce a decent point spread for New England. Waiting sort of on team totals here to see another sportsbook here, FanDuel 2.5 for the Pats, shaded towards the 3. I'm a little surprised to see that not right on the flat 3. Team totals, New England over 9.5, heavily shaded to the over. That's the home total, pardon me. Colts 9.5, heavily shaded to the over. Pats visiting 13.5 points on the team total. That one's priced pretty evenly. 9.5 at minus 154 is too steep for me to take because I'm willing to say that the Colts are going to score more than 10 in this spot. And that number is obviously being priced heavily because of the key number of 10. So we'll see if we get a more appealing number elsewhere. If anyone's following in the chat and you're seeing a number that's bigger, I'm betting here in Canada, so I'm going to see different numbers than we're looking at. But Colts team total is certainly intriguing. And if you go to the other side of 10 and get 10.5 to the over, that's a number that I like quite a bit. And I think this, again, is sort of similar to what we were talking about on the Thursday halftime show. I think this is a second half that finds its way over either way. There's really been two big momentum plays. Obviously, the punt block and then that interception for the Colts late. But they had that amazing opening script. And people are looking at this as potentially a matchup advantage for the Patriots from a coaching perspective. Don't get me wrong. Belichick has been great all season, but I don't think that we should ignore how effective Frank Reich has been as a play caller leading this Colts team all season long. This is a team that's faced 7 different defenses inside the top 5, and the Colts have put up fantastic numbers against each of them. No exception here, but I think we saw him really having the Pats defense go either way, a lot of really effective pre-snap motion, and he sort of just, they were talking about turning the dial and all those buzzwords that Greg Olsen had, but it's almost like Reich, in a way, saw how dominant his offensive line has been up front and is just kind of the last 2 drives just fed Taylor, I think, a little bit too much. And to me, the damning play calls were the first and second down run inside the 10-yard line on the drive where the Colts settled for the field goal. Not surprised to see the halftime spread there go to 3 for the Pats. But I think that drive specifically is going to lead to a little bit more passing despite the lead for Indianapolis. So the Colts this season, now 11 games that they have led by double digits this season. It's incredibly impressive how they're able to get out to the lead. And we're starting to see Taylor. I think that drive was really interesting. So I haven't made it clear yet for the pick. Colts team total second half over. If you're looking at that 9.5 at FanDuel, try go somewhere else and get a 10.5 at a much better price, minus 154. We won't make that an official number, but if someone's seeing a 10.5 and you have the option between the two, take the Colts team total over. We'll go 10.5. I'm seeing minus 115 in Canada. That's the bet that I'm going to be making. I like that team total over more so than I like the full second half over, although I think this is a game that's going to get into the high 40s. But again, like what I was saying, I think the Colts end up passing a little bit more than they did in the first half because that last drive, I think, changes the play calling back to what we saw from the first drive where Wentz was a little bit more involved, just missed Pittman on a wide open shot. The Pats are really starting to creep up a little bit more into the box, but this O-line, they're protecting well. They're just absolutely dominating the Pats defensive line up front. And so I think it's a spot where Indy, now with the lead, they're going to get a lot of good looks in the passing game, and they're going to take advantage of that. I think they're going to score. I think the Colts get into the 30, 31 points. So if you're seeing, we now see 10 over minus 130, even if you see 10.5 as a bit of a worse number, but at a better price, you can see 10.5 at minus 110. That's certainly the bet I like in this situation. So officially we'll go over 10.5, minus 110. You're going to find better numbers, but I'd rather give something out that everybody can get than not give anything at all or take a number that's only available to a few places. So I'll go with 10.5 over second half team total for the Colts. Patriots continue to get bet on the side. I mean, look, this is the thing about New England is along this 7-game stretch, they've benefited from weather against their two top offensive opponents that they faced. They benefited from a lot of opposing offensive quarterback, wide receiver, skill position player injuries. They beat up on a couple young quarterbacks, but the Titans were decimated. The Falcons were decimated. And now they're finally playing an offense. And we're seeing them in a bit of a weird situation where they're getting bullied. And this is the matchup that it was going to be. But we haven't seen this secondary really tested yet of New England. And I think Reich is setting it up. And I think in a way that those couple drives where he was really heavy on Taylor are just going to open things up in the second half. But this is really what these two teams are. We saw the Colts Super Bowl odds before the game hovering right around 35-1. A win here is going to be very interesting when we're looking Tuesday morning this week, just to see how far those numbers are ultimately going to drop. The AFC was around 15-1. This is going to be a team that professional bettors support them every week. And it's going to be a spot where they're just going to continue to keep on getting bet week after week, because the way that they can be multiple on offense is just really difficult for opposing defenses. And already next week, we've seen the Colts get bet again against Arizona in the look-ahead market. So the support for them is very real. And that first half was not a fluke. This is a really real football team. So second half team total over 10.5. Like the way the Colts are moving the football, think they continue to do so. And that's going to be the bet for the second half. I will be back with you. Ches will be with me on Monday night. Sunday night, Jason Logan, bet now, bet later. A lot of great content coming up on the Covers feed. And we've got a ton of primetime games now between Monday and Tuesday that I'm going to have videos for as well, each and every halftime. For Covers.com, I am Adam Chernoff. Enjoy the second half. Colts over 10.5 team total is the bet.